Hey guys, so I told you on my Instagram I would be making this video on single strand knots. They're also called fairy knots. They're the same thing. So I have been struggling with them and I never have struggled with single strand knots. So when people would ask me about it, I was like, I don't really know because I don't get them. But more recently, now that my hair is getting longer, it takes so much longer to do, and I've just been really lazy with keeping my hair moisturized. Like, I will let my hair get so dry and tangled, and that is what is causing my single strand knots. There are many different reasons why people get single strand knots, but some of the most common are when you let your hair get extremely dry, extremely tangled, to the point where your hair starts to knot against it, each strand. So single strand knots can happen on just one strand, or it can be different strands just forming a knot on each other. So yeah, I just wanted to give you guys some tips on how to reduce single strand knots. Now, I have learned a few tips just from common sense and from trying different things out, but then I did also just do my research on some tips. So just stay tuned if you want to get rid of those single strand knots. My first tip, and if I'm looking down, it's just because I wrote all my tips down. My first tip is to trim your ends regularly. Now, I know this is one of the key reasons why I've been getting a lot of single strand knots. I haven't trimmed my ends in a year, which is kind of bad because I know I need a trim very badly. My ends are dry and frizzy, even though you can't really tell whenever I do hairstyles. But yeah, single strand knots can be a sign that you need to trim your ends, a sign that you have split ends, damaged ends, because when your hair is damaged, it's more likely that your hair will, get tangled and knotted. So if you're not keeping up with your trims, make sure you are, because single strand knots they're not fun. My second tip is to deep condition your hair. Now, I feel like everyone's solution to most things is to deep condition, but there is a reason why deep conditioning is so important. It helps to make your hair nice and strong. It strengthens your hair. When your hair is strong, it's less likely to break, it's less likely to be damaged, and unhealthy. Weak hair is unhealthy hair. Strong hair is healthy. When your hair is unhealthy, it's more likely to, tangle up and get those single strand knots. So if you're not deep conditioning, make sure you have that in your regimen. I deep condition once a week. Some people like to do it every other week. It all depends on your hair. My third tip is to protect your hair at night. And this is something I have never done. It's not really the best to sleep on cotton pillowcases with natural hair because it can cause snags and tangles and cause your hair to dry out. So it is really good. It's really good for you to sleep on like satin pillowcases, wear a satin bonnet, satin scarf, things like that. So that's something I am going to try and get more into. Maybe a satin pillowcase, just because I don't like sleeping with anything on my head. Another tip to reduce single strand knots is to detangle your hair before you shampoo. I know a lot of people, they think they can just get in the shower and pour shampoo in their hair. No, when you use shampoo, a lot of shampoos can be drying and stripping to the hair. Not all, but a lot of them can be. So you want to make sure your hair is detangled before you shampoo so that your hair does not tangle up, get knots, anything, and you just cause that unnecessary breakage. Also, detangling in like sections. I detangle in 4 sections now, which has really been a lifesaver for my hair. So taking those precautions before you like shampoo or anything like that can really, save your hair from getting tangles and getting knots. My 5th tip, and this is like one of the most obvious ones that I learned just from getting single strand knots, is to keep your hair moisturized. The only reason I've started getting single strand knots is because I've been lazy with moisturizing my hair. I've been letting my hair get completely, and I mean completely, dried out to the point where it's horrible. It's horrible. So yeah, you want to keep your hair moisturized. When your hair is moisturized, it is less likely to tangle up, opposed to when it is unmoisturized, completely dry. You know, when your hair is completely dry, that's when it just tangles and mats up, and that's when you're going to get those single strand knots. So however often you have to moisturize your hair, do it. If you're the person who has to moisturize, you know, when you style and then moisturize midweek, do that. I don't have to moisturize midweek, but when my hair starts to get dry, you know, I have to stop being lazy and style or re-moisturize my hair. My sixth tip for single strand knots is to protective style. Now this is something I don't personally do just because I'm not really into protective styles, but if you are, it will be really good for single strand knots just because majority of the time single strand knots are on your ends, they're closer to your ends. So when you protect the style, you're protecting your ends. Your ends are tucked in, covered, so they, you know, most likely won't get those single strand knots. So if you can do braids, maybe crochet, weaves, whatever, as long as it's a healthy protective style and your hair is moisturized and all that underneath, that is a great way to reduce single strand knots. My seventh tip is kind of similar to protective styles, but it's to do stretched hairstyles. So doing, like, I have a braid out, you can do a twist out, you can do hairstyles on blow dried hair. That can really help reduce single strand knots, just because the more stretched your hair is, the less likely it is to tangle. And this kind of gets me into my eighth tip. Oh yeah, watch out. Go get it. Go get it. Go get it. This kind of gets me into my eighth tip, which is to reduce doing wash and goes. When your hair is in its shrunken state, it's more likely to get tangled and knotted up. So if you're doing a ton of wash and goes, you might notice you have a bit more of those single strand knots, just because, you know, when anyone does wash and goes, that is a style that kind of really is more of your natural state, opposed to like braid outs, twist outs, which can stretch your hair. So yeah, if I were to just do a ton of wash and goes, which I don't, and also if I were to just leave my hair in its natural state, it would, you know, tangle up faster than, you know, a twist out or braid out would. So making sure you stay away from wash and goes can really reduce single strand knots. My ninth tip is to keep your ends moisturized. Like I said, single strand knots are more likely to happen on the ends of your hair, and the ends are the oldest part of your hair. They can become the driest part. The more dry your hair is, the more likely it is to tangle and knot. So you want to make sure your ends are moisturized, whether that means you have to just add more product to the ends, whether you're sealing your ends with an oil, whatever you have to do to keep your ends moisturized, do it, because you don't want those single strand knots. My last tip is to never pull out or rip these single strand knots out of your hair. That is like the worst thing you can do, because you're going to just be ripping out your hair and causing unnecessary breakage. This is something I really have to work on, because lately it's like if I play in my hair and I feel them, I'm like, when it comes to anything, I'm a picker. When it comes to scabs, just, you know, pimples, anything, I have to mess around and pick at it. So that's what I do with single strand knots. I rip them out because I'm like trying to get it, and when I can't get it, I get frustrated and rip it. So you don't want to do that. If you can, sometimes you can save your hair. Sometimes if you take like a fine tooth comb and kind of get, you know, the knot out, because like I said, the knot is pretty much just your hair tangled up. So if it's not too bad, you sometimes can get it out with a fine strand, a fine tooth comb, or you can just snip them out with with trimming scissors. So that will be much better than just completely ripping your hair out. So yeah, you guys, those are my tips for single strand knots. Let me know down below if you experience them. I know a lot of people tell me this is like something that is, you know, a really big problem for their natural hair. Some people told me they had to constantly cut their hair off just for it to stop. So I hope these tips help you. I know I've been struggling with them, so I'm gonna make sure I follow my own tips and keep my hair moisturized and stuff. Get a trim very soon because I really need it badly. So yeah, go ahead, like, comment, share, subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I'll be back with my next one. Bye.